Hey everybody, this is Joel over at ImportSauce.com, and today we're talking about a product as much. We're going to be talking about a product install and giving you some tips and tricks. What we're talking about is the upgraded TurboSmart Elevate wastegate for your KO4 Turbo on the P1 Volvos S40, V50, C30s, and just really some tricks on how to get this one out. This one in, so stick around. Okay, so what we wanted to do today was talk about the install and some tips, some tricks that I think you're going to need. Here we're talking about, again, the wastegate actuator install for the KO4 Turbo P1 Volvo S40, V50, C30. Got this new unit, the TurboSmart Elevate spec, got that out. This is going to allow us to modify some maps, get a little bit more boost and some more boost-friendly maps now that this new unit is going to be able to handle that and properly, control it over the stock unit. So, as with Elevate and everything you get from them, you are going to get detailed, full-color, step-by-step instructions. As we noted with the bypass valve install, which is also on the turbo unit, is that the Elevate instructions come with it off of the vehicle. So they're showing you the instructions for how it should be installed, which are step-by-step, that's fine, but they don't take into account what's going on under the vehicle. So initially on the instructions, it did say that we are going to access from underneath the vehicle. We found that we needed to access from underneath through the passenger fender well, and then also from above by getting the turbo intake pipe out of the way. So we wanted to go through and kind of tell you what we did, because I think it'll save you a little bit of time and a little bit of hassle. So initially it says access from underneath, that's fine. So the first step was to remove our vacuum line. Boop! That wasn't a big deal. Next, we had to back up the washer on the shaft here. Not a big deal. We had a little bit of stickage and rust, but it was able to get off of there. From there, there was the little spinning, I forgot the official name of it, on the actual clamps there. You're going to back that off, and that's going to allow this shaft to come out. The problem that we got to was removing the two bolts, and we have those here, 10 millimeter, which holds the bracket onto the turbo housing. So from underneath, you could access the bottom. There was a hard line there, so it was just about quarter turn at a time, loop, 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 playing that game, and then that one came up, no problem. The problem was when we got to the top bolt, there was no access to get to it because there's only enough room to get maybe a little wrench, but you're not going to be able to get up and above on there. So at that point we said, we're not going to even mess with it. Let's get the fender liner off and get the tire off. It wasn't the biggest necessity to do that, but we did find it great to put a shop light and a spotlight into that so that it illuminated what we were doing. We didn't actually have to go in through there, but when we looked, it gave us a little bit of visual reference. And we found that to help out. So you don't have to necessarily go that route, but definitely a flashlight is going to help out if you can get it in from the top or from the side. So once we were able to locate it, we found that there was the oil feed and return lines, which were pretty much butting right up against it. So we had to, you couldn't put a socket on it, you couldn't put a ratchet. We had to again use our 10 millimeter open-ended and just a few turns at a time, a few turns at a time. And the problem is to get access to that from the top, you may not have one. We had to take the strut bar off. After that, we had to take the turbo intake pipe, and we didn't fully remove it. We loosened the clamp and we kind of got it out of the way so that you could actually reach down from the top and get that wrench on there. And from there, we're like, okay, this is going to be easy enough. But the problem is, let's just use this as an example, the oil hard line was about that close. So as we backed this all the way up, we started running into the hard line. And it's right where it inlets into the turbo manifold. So at that point, we had all the threads out of the housing, but the bolt was jammed right up against it. So at that point, we decided, well, let's go underneath and see if we can kind of do a little shimmy from the top. And what we had to do was actually get a small pry bar and go against that oil line. And we had to just give it a slight little opening. Careful not to bend it or crimp it or put any, puncture on that. And we were able to just get enough where we could squeeze and pry this guy out. So it's important to note that with the new unit, it's actually two pieces, right? So you're going to be able to do the bracket first, and from there you're going to be able to put the new unit onto the bracket. And that's important to note as well, because even once the bolts were off, trying to pry this through the hard lines, we did have to bend this out a little, which is fine because this is going in the trash. And so initially we thought a better design that we could do real quick.
So an important note on when we say a design improvement, Volvo obviously manufactured these parts to fit in a compact space. When it came to this particular part, it is likely that Volvo's either going to service the whole turbo manifold, they would have it out, or they may find it easier to remove the oil return lines. Further, when looking at aftermarket manufacturers for these parts, they're typically working in with the constraints of what Volvo had given them. So to make parts that will line up the same way or fit within the same space constraints. So when we say here would be our idea for a design improvement, it doesn't mean that we think that the particular design of either Volvo or any aftermarket manufacturers is bad. It's just us thinking out loud like, oh, this would be nice, but we neither research or develop those parts, so there's probably underlying issues that would prevent, certain things from being done. So we just want to be clear that in no way, when we say design improvements, does that mean that the parts from the factory or from aftermarket manufacturers are flawed. It's just, it would be nice if it was this way.
Is to just notch out a little bit here so that when we put it in, it'll notch into the bolts, and then the bolt's already in there without the bracket. We could get it in easier. But what we did is we went down to the hardware store, and for reference, the factory bolt is M7 by 1. We went and we got just two versions of them that were just, well, you can't really see it if I hold it like that, but we got two versions that were just like one thread and then like 2-3 threads shorter. And I think that's just going to give us enough bite to hold the unit in, but it's also going to give us enough clearance to not have to pry anymore on that oil line and to be able to secure it properly. So we are going to go ahead and put this in. If the video ends here, then just assume that everything went well. We're going to put the new shorter bolt on the top, the regular one on the bottom, and then we're going to bolt up and follow the rest of the Elevate instructions there. And then at that point, we will just reconnect the vacuum line and then set the preload on there, and we'll call it a day. If we come back with more tips and tricks, then we ran into some issues. So we'll either see you or we won't. Either way, importsauce.com and all of our socials at importsauce. Thanks for watching.